Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Dragonus Podcastus. I am your host, Dead Ponic, and with me, as always, is Queen Byron. Without her, none of this would be possible.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys enjoy our show, you can support us on patreon.com/Dragonus Podcastus. You can also help us out with a bingo card. That's actually being put on hold at the moment because I have to retune it. We have bloopers if they ever happen. We also have our Fiverr pages. I do weapon and armor artwork. And Byron, what do you do on your Fiverr pages? What do you offer?
Yeah, I have a bunch of different things. Most of them relate to running games online. So if you want to learn how Foundry works, Roll20, how to optimize your Discord, or perhaps you're interested in AI tools to enhance your games, working with Midjourney, ChatGPT, all good things like that.
Yeah, she's kind of a whiz when it comes to Discord. Without her, the Discord, our own Discord channel would not be possible, and probably wouldn't even gotten them off the ground. Anyway, so today's gonna be a bit of a weird, well, not a weird, but it's gonna be. I wanted to have like a fun episode. So Byron has actually put together basically a Q&A regarding my homebrew world, and she's gonna ask me a bunch of questions, and I'm going to try to answer them without the sarcasm.
Well, you can try your best, I guess, huh?
Yeah, and you might get a few tidbits here and there. You might get some. You probably might also learn something about the world and my mentality when it comes to making this world. This also can also apply to most DMs when it comes to homebrew worlds, which is also important because not every uh, not every homebrew world is created equal, and no two homebrew worlds are ever alike.
That's
Anyway,
true.
okay, Byron, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, so what kind of movies, TV shows, or things like that do you watch for inspiration for your world?
Well, so basically, I watch mostly kids shows. Like the big one for me was, um, there's a little show called Rescue Heroes. Um, I did watch a little bit of. I watched a lot of Power Rangers actually. Now that I think about it, I watched a lot of I watched Atomic Betty. I watched Kim Possible. That's the big one. I really like that show.
Hmm.
Um, I also, funny enough, I actually watched a little bit of Phineas and Ferb a little bit too. Which,
Interesting.
yeah, but for movies, Lord of the Rings is definitely the big one for me because it's so like detailed. It's like the movies specifically are absolutely gorgeous, and I'm probably gonna cause a lot of controversy here, but I actually don't mind the Hobbit movies. They actually give a little more context to the original. Basically, I think Peter Jackson was doing a Star Wars thing where he has the prequel movies and then he has the main movies. And I'm not gonna predict anything, but I have a funny feeling there's gonna be a sequel movie somewhere down the line. You never know.
We'll
And
have to wait and see.
hopefully, but I didn't directly copy the idea of the Lord of the Rings world because what I tried to do was I tried to implement the some small ideas in such a way as to avoid um directly copying it. Like you may have like some moments where it's one person against a giant monster. Not exactly a this is nothing new. It's just that Lord of the Rings kind of perfected that.
Mm.
And for me, it's also about giving the world and the idea of what I copy more nuance and subtlety rather than being open about its or being like in your face about its messaging.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
Well,
that's a pretty good question actually.
yeah. Do you have ideas that you haven't used that you maybe have like left on the cutting room floor?
Actually, there were a couple ideas that I had to scrap, much to my dismay. The four big ones were actually sorry, five ideas. So there were like I got like tons of ideas that were on the cutting room floor, but these are the big ones. So there's a couple of Dark Souls bosses that I wanted to use as like guardians or like giant like encounters. Another one is finding a way to implement Scooby Doo, which
Mm.
I don't know how I would do that, but I can imagine. Well, I think there was a movie where they implemented some fantasy elements, but I'm not entirely sure about that. There were some weapons that never got past just being ideas, or they never made it to the drawing board, which is unfortunate. There was even going to be a moment within the context of the story where Clement actually died, which,
Wow.
yeah, I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to kill you off your character because that would have been maybe a little too much. But then and the other one is I was gonna have a moment in the story where Mordenkainen and Tasha meet with some of the characters and they offer their wisdom before Mordenkainen being a what's the word, a ecstatic or existential egotist, basically cites how pathetic a character's knowledge base of magic truly is before Tasha comes in and offers a snide remark.
Mhm.
That one would be kind of interesting to implement, and I'm maybe moving that off the cutting room floor, but I'm definitely leaving the other four where they are because, especially killing off Clement, that would be too much.
It'd be pretty intense, that's for sure.
I was gonna have her killed by a watermelon.
Okay.
Yeah, no, no.
Maybe that's best left on the floor.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that tends to happen when you have like a bunch of ideas running around your head. You see, you just come up with these wacky ideas, and somehow you either implement them or you don't implement them, and then you just
Mhm.
kind of have this like feeling of regret. It's like, oh, I wanted to kill somebody off with a watermelon,
Well, keep that in the back pocket, right?
or more specifically, keep it in the bag of holding.
Oh, sure, sure. So, how long have you been writing your homebrew world?
Actually, I started about 3 years ago, but I've been writing for 5 years. I did have some of the lore already written, but I never actually had a chance to actually like jot my thoughts down. And I have this really bad habit that goes back to high school where I have a habit of writing things down on paper, losing that sheet of paper, and I have to start all over again. Same thing
Oh,
with
goodness.
notebooks where like I forget like, oh, I already jotted this down, and then I have to start on a new page, and I look back and I'm like, oh, I already had this jotted down. It's like
Mhm.
I have a really bad habit of doing that.
Well, maybe you can get some new notebooks. I always think a new notebook will help me stay organized, but I end up just collecting them.
Yeah, I like collecting notebooks because if you ever want to jot your thoughts down, or you just want to write a manifesto, or you just want to just write stuff down. It's always good to have that because nothing is better than just like actually writing rather than typing, because eventually your
Mm.
hands get tired when you type too much.
So, if you could have an action figure from any person or character in your world, who would you pick?
This might surprise you, but funny enough, I was actually gonna pick either Clement with her wings fully extended because she's now officially a sister of Valkyria, but she hasn't gotten her wings yet. I was gonna maybe put that in. Maybe if I could have that, or a Solaris Knight, or just a sister of Valkyria.
Wow, yeah.
And
Oh,
oh, sorry,
go ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
Well, in your world, do you consider magic to be abundant or scarce?
Magic is everywhere. It's basically like the Force. It surrounds us, it enters us, and it binds the world together like global gorilla glue.
Absolutely.
And also,
Does
it is the thing that keeps the world together, because then you would have like massive problems.
Mm. Does your world, I'm sorry, does your world use the traditional schools of magic or have you made up your own?
I use my own well, not classification, but they basically, every branch of magic, be whatever it is divided based on the properties of the spell and its application. And yet it is not exclusive to a classification. So, for example, a fireball is technically considered a offensive spell, but it can be used defensively or as a utility to start a fire or even as a flare.
Hmm.
So there's tons of like other spells that can work like that. Like for example, chilling touch. So say a person, okay, this might be a bad example, but say a person is on fire and you use chilling touch. Now I don't know if chilling touch is like where you cover your hand in like ice, or it's just it's basically you drain the life force from somebody.
Traditionally it's a necrotic damage spell, but maybe in your world it's something else.
Now, if I understand correctly, necrotic damage doesn't work on uh undead. So I have to work on that bit because um there are ways of dealing with undead in the world, and generally speaking, necromancy is like it's how undead are created, but at the same time, it's also the same. It's also how they're um you know unalived.
Mm-hmm. Do
Okay.
you
Oh.
have uh, do you have any games, or does your world have any games that are popular among the population?
So the most common among these is American style football, and if there's any Brits watching, please don't grab your pitchfork because I'm referring to football, not soccer. It's this is the one that really gets me because um every country has a different classification of what is considered soccer and football, but you know what? I'm gonna end this little debate. You gotta you gotta throw the ball into the end zone, right?
Uh-huh.
Why don't we just call it throw ball?
Good luck.
Yeah. Um, you also have the Burleigh Summer Games. There's archery contests all over the place. You got throwing knife competitions. They even have a giant game of Operation, which don't ask me
Oh.
how that works.
Interesting. What, speaking of entertainment for the people, what is one famous celebration that takes place in your world?
So every 20 years, all of the famous bands and singers come together to form as one is known as the Waking Dream Festival, which is basically where they just perform in order to keep Saragash asleep, so that all hell doesn't break loose.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it's funny enough. It's not they, despite the fact that, from what I understand, um, it's that I actually implement it where it's not where for the Beatles where they didn't drop Pete Best and go for Ringo. They actually, stayed together, and also One Direction actually stayed together rather than going off on their own.
Hmm.
And thankfully, no Justin Bieber.
Oh, not Justin Bieber. All right. Do you have any video game characters uh and do you have any characters inspired by video game characters in your world?
Well, I do have a couple characters that are like actual video game characters, but they're kind of contained in their own way, or they don't interact with anybody
Mm.
within the context of the world. The big one for me though is I use the ghosts from Luigi's Mansion rather than traditional ghosts. I have Spyro the Dragon. He is pretty much the first ever video game I ever played, and I I played all three of the games religiously when I was a kid. So I think I can safely say I'm an expert on the subject. Um, I did want to incorporate Mario, but I decided, you know what, it's not worth it. And plus, I'm not a big fan of the idea of him like stomping on Goombas and Koopas and all that,
Mm.
because it would be a mess. We'll just call it that. And also, there's Bowser, who has his own. There's a bunch of issues with Bowser that I have. I wanted to implement Donkey Kong, but I said, you know what? I got Tarzan, so I think I think I prefer to handle one ape over two. And
Hmm.
plus I'm not a big fan of bananas.
Oh, sure. What is something that you would like to add but haven't worked out all the details yet?
Okay, so yeah, this is the final question. So the big ones for me are I wanted to implement Pokemon in some way where like the Pokemon themselves are not like captured and like, forced to fight each other. It's like wild Pokemon, except they have the bond with humans, or they have this idea of like it's like a sanctuary for wild Pokemon, or they just have an area that's entirely their own. And I also wanted to, much to my dismay, because of how much my sister loves this, I wanted to implement My Little Pony.
Hmm.
Um, I also wanted to have a moment where a character has like a vision of clarity where they recognize their fate, but they don't try to change it. Like for example, like somebody realizes that they have to do something and they will most certainly die, but they accept that, and they're like, you know what? I've lived my life as best as I could, not knowing its purpose, and
Hmm.
yet it gives me peace knowing that I leave this world in such a way that is on my own terms and I've done my part for the world.
Hmm.
And I want more moments with mature yet tactful violence. So, for example, I want someone to cut someone's head off, but it has to be like a clean slice where there's no blood, because that would be, it's gross, and also it's very gratuitous. And I think it's just better to like have a clean slice, and or have like a moment where the person slices, there's a moment that passes, and then the body falls forward and the head rolls. That's
Mm.
what I refer to as tactful violence. And also, just chopping off limbs without the the blood. That would be, though I would be remiss if I said like magic, like where you throw a fireball at somebody and like that person actually gets set on fire. But I'm trying to stay away from that kind of thing,
Mm.
because it's too much, and it's also very it's not easy to it's not easy to implement. It's not easy to tell, and it's also not it's very difficult to like make it tactful and mature. At the same time, our show is not, well, it we try to be somewhat kid friendly. So if it ever comes to it, I'd probably just either write it in a different way, or I would just say, okay, well, the person, you shot a fireball at somebody and they disintegrated into a pile of dust.
Hmm.
And then finally, I mean, I know this one's gonna be a bit of a leap, but I wanted to integrate like lightsabers, because such a big Star Wars person. But
Hmm.
also not just that, but also I wanted a good old fashioned duel where victory comes through being clever and having like superior skill, rather than just like bull rushing the other person until they finally go down, and then you kill them. So yeah,
Oh,
that's those ones. I'm kind of actually working on a couple of those, but um, some of them I'm gonna have to do later down the line.
hmm.
All right, so that's all the questions we have. But so what are your thoughts overall in terms of like my answers to your questions?
Yeah, I thought your answers were great. It's interesting to get more insight into your kind of creative process and your thought process, that sort of thing.
Some people
And
might. Oh,
yeah,
sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, interested to see what comes next.
Yeah, some people might call me crazy, but I'm not crazy. I'm just my imagination is a little more set than others, and
Mm,
also every homebrew world is based on a person's imagination. So
mm-hmm.
you can't really judge a person by their imagination, because if you let your imagination run wild, weird things happen.
That's definitely true.
Anyway, so next week is gonna be it's gonna actually our final character overview. Yay!
Hmm.
And it's the one that is arguably either the most popular Magic User class, or it gets mistranslated. But
Mm.
we'll see you guys next time.